sports cars. Now, this is a category that's going to divide our experts.
Sports cars are the point of passion, aren't they? They're the reason why everybody loves cars. You don't kind of sit back and go, oh, I really like cars because that transit van was epic. No, you do it because it's a sports car.
For me, a sports car is all about finding yourself some nice B-roads and put a massive smile on your face. Preferably, you should also have a little bit of wind in your hair, if you've got any hair.
So, what is a sports car?
For me, a sports car is basically a racing car that you can use on the road. What more could you want?
They're light, fun. They're the cars you want to drive rather than the cars you have to drive.
A sports car should make you feel good, it should make you look good, it should make you sound good, it should make you look better looking.
A sports car has to make you feel like a hero. Even if you can't drive for toffee, the minute you jump into that low-slung seat and you grip onto that Alcantara steering wheel and you fire up the engine, it has to make you feel like a driving god.
Every fan's interpretation of a sports car is going to be the same because they have certain ingredients that make them a sports car. Oh, lovely little raspy engine. They're usually two-seater. They're going to have a high-performance engine, precise handling, and that's what makes the ultimate sports car. This is a category that's been on a journey. From exclusive cars reserved for the rich to affordable cars that make sense of the freedom and adventure sports cars represent, accessible to everyone.
There is a kind of man who wants more than basic transportation in a car. He wants something quick and responsive, with reflexes that match his own.
When you're a kid, they're the thing that you have a poster of on your wall, aren't they? They're the thing that the celebrities in the movies are driving, or the sports stars. Your heroes had a sports car.
There are hundreds of stunning sports cars, but after a lot of debate, our panel have whittled them down to what they believe are the world's 5 best. Where to start? Well, with a car that had wings. And other sports cars of its era didn't have a prayer of beating it.
One of my favourite pieces of design.
You can be staring at it from the front, from the back, from the sides, down on your knees, underneath. You can be flying above it. It doesn't matter. From every single angle, this one is utterly gorgeous. It's the Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing.
I'm all about the visuals, so this thing could run like a bag of frogs and I would still love it. But the bottom line is the performance is bang on. It's awesome.
If you don't like this car, I haven't got time for you, I'm afraid, because it is one of the most beautiful things, not just cars, things I've ever laid eyes on.
Epic car. Epic car. It's exceptional. The quality's unbelievable. It just breezes down the road effortlessly. Wow. God, I wish I could afford a Gullwing. Do you know what? If I could afford a Gullwing, I'd have one.
Well, Ant, if you had £1 million to spare, you might be able to bag one in average condition.
Mercedes 300 SL ist die neueste Konstruktion der Daimler-Benz-Werke.
It all started in Germany in 1954, when Mercedes created an instant classic.
This is a car that set new records and seemed to come from another planet. It changed the world and how we see sports cars today.
The Gullwing was immense. You're talking about a car that in 1954 could do 0 to 60 in 8.8 seconds. And you have to remember there are cars on sale today that can't do 0 to 60 in 8.8 seconds. This is a car that was beautiful, it was fantastic to drive, and it was just rocket technology in the 1950s. And it was born on the racetrack.
In the early 1950s, the racing world was dominated by Aston Martin, Jaguar and Ferrari. Mercedes wanted to show what they were capable of. The 300 SL entered 5 endurance races spanning the globe, from the Carrera Pan America in Mexico to the Eiffel Rennen sports car race on the Nürburgring in Germany.
In the final hours on the second day, the pressure is really on. Only the toughest cars and drivers are still in the race.
It was their big hope, but it also had a serious issue.
The only engine Mercedes had was the 3-litre straight six for them to put in the Gullwing car, which was fine, but not as powerful as their rivals such as Ferrari had at the time.
The challenge was how to create more speed without upgrading the engine. And the answer came from a Mercedes homegrown genius.
The chief engineer, Rudolf Uhlenhaut, decided to make the car as light as possible. So it was a chromoly space frame, only 140 pounds. And that was why it was called the SL Super Light. That's my best German accent. It's super light to you and me.
Now, super light meant super fast. In its first season, it won 4 out of the 5 races it entered, even beating Ferrari at Le Mans.
Only 17 cars are still running out of the 57 that started yesterday afternoon. And so the German Mercedes number 21 comes through to win, with number 20 in second place.
The world had fallen in love with the 300 SLs. Hollywood good looks, its perfect proportions, and most of all, the coolest doors anyone had ever seen.
The Gullwing doors on the Mercedes were designed with a very specific reason, and that was because the floor strengthening, the torsional rigidity of the car came from this incredible strengthening right up the side. And that meant if you used a conventional door, there wouldn't be room for the driver to get in. So the Gullwing, up and over, driver can slide in. It's ingenious and it's beautiful.
How can this car not be a success? I mean, look at those doors. They're just hypnotic.
When those Gullwing doors open up, boy, oh boy, you better be looking smart as you exit that car.
You open the door, click the steering wheel so that goes flat. Brilliant little bit of design there. Put your bum on the very thick sill, slide yourself across into it, lift the door down, put the steering wheel flat, and you're ready to go.
Originally, the Gullwing was precision German engineering meant for the racetrack, but this race car wasn't destined for public roads, and it never would have got there if it hadn't have been for one person.
There was an American car dealer, a very enlightened man called Max Hoffman, and he saw the Gullwings racing in Europe and straight on the phone to Mercedes, we should have these in California. We should have them all over America. And the Americans, in a rare moment of good taste, bought these things by the bucket load.
If sheer beauty, clever design and mind-blowing performance weren't enough, the Gullwing ticks another box in the hunt for the ultimate sports car: exclusivity.
I think exclusivity is a key factor when it comes to sports cars, particularly classic sports cars, and Mercedes ticks this box. Only 1,400 were made. How many left today? Not many.
Price-wise on a Gullwing, one recently went to auction for £1.3 million, so a pricey thing, but I think given the rarity, desirability and how well they drive, I think that's a bit of a bargain.
So we're unanimous. The Gullwing fully deserves its place on our shortlist for the world's greatest sports car. Sports cars are some of the most sought after and talked about cars in the world, so trying to agree on the best one ever made is not easy.
Paul Cowland will probably say that we should have American cars in the sports car class.
Can I just say, why are we having a programme about sports cars and we're not having the conversation about American muscle cars? Because just break it down. So a big V8 engine, affordable, low-slung coupe body that the everyman can get into, that's a sports car.
A muscle car is always American. It's always a coupe. And if it doesn't have a V8, it doesn't count. Cars like the Mustang and Corvette.
The Corvette is a true sports car. The first one, fiberglass body, 2 seats, V8 motor, lightweight, low slung, that is a sports car.
Sorry, Cowland, but I and the rest of the panel disagree. You see, it is universally acknowledged that muscle cars are designed first and foremost for straight-line speed.
We're not doing muscle cars? Right, OK. If I had an agent, I would call him. What's happening?
He'll be back. I've driven hundreds of muscle cars, and actually not one of them comes close to the next car.
There are good cars, there are great cars, and there are iconic cars. And And I believe the Porsche 911 is an iconic car.
The Porsche 911 is probably my dream car, if I'm honest.
Porsche 911, right now, yet again, those sneaky Germans, it is the complete package. It's got the handling, it's got the looks, it's got everything you're gonna want. I mean, it's it, isn't it?
The first time I ever drove one, I was a road tester at Auto Express magazine, and it was the launch of the Porsche 911 Targa. I was just blown away by the sheer beauty and the engineering precision and brilliance of the car.
I agree, Vicky. Over 15 years ago, I drove a Targa too, and it started an obsession. This car really is a proper bit of kit. It's good to nip down the shop and get a pint of milk, and it's a fantastic GT cruiser for those long journeys. It's the jack of all trades, and I love it.
The first time I saw a Porsche 911 was the late 1970s. In the back of my parents' car, Alton Park racetrack, pulled in into the car park, and I saw this orange thing hovering on top of the grass. It almost looked like it was floating. And as it drove past, I was like that. I just fell for it instantly.
So the Porsche has some instant appeal, a look, a shape that is unmistakable.
The 911 is so iconic that I could draw it in my sleep, and if I was blindfolded and I touched a car, I would know that it was a 911. My senses are alert to it, more alert perhaps than in most other cars, because it has got a big heavy rear end that will swing around and bite me.
I think the design of the 911 is iconic. It's a word that's overused, but the 911 really is. You can actually trace that lineage, that window shape, that profile, all the way back to the very first car, right up to the present day with the 992. And what's clever about it, they've never made a huge change with each model year. It's definitely an evolution rather than a revolution.
This is a 1968 911, but it's basically the same shape as the very early ones, 1964 onwards. And this is my car. It's undergoing a little bit of work at the moment, a little bit of restoration, but it's the shape that gets it for me. Look at this sloping roofline that goes all the way down to the back, the bulb over the rear wheel arch that delicately flows into the rear light lens, the doors that do this at the bottom. Look, the door sculptures round at the bottom, so it's like it's holding you tight inside the car. Every time I walk out the shop, I always turn back and have another look at it and go, that's mine, that is, because I absolutely love it. It's beautiful. And it seems I'm not the only fan. But Vicky Butler Henderson, well, she prefers a younger model.
So this is my little pride and joy. It is a Porsche 911 GT3. It's a 997 Gen 1, and I love stroking it. When I sit in this car, I just feel like the rest of the world doesn't exist. It's just me and the machine. The seats hug me so beautifully. The steering wheel is of the right thickness and the right dimension, and the pedals are exactly where I want them to be, not offset in any way. Oh, it's just lovely. I feel instantly connected to this car, and I haven't even turned a wheel. I honestly can't imagine a time in my life where I will not have a 911 in my garage. And boys, if you will excuse me, I've got somewhere to be.
Surprisingly, the origins of the iconic 911 owes a debt to another iconic car, Volkswagen, or in English, the people's car. The best-selling car of all time, the car that would become the Beetle. Hitler wanted it, and Ferdinand Porsche, he delivered.
If you look at the Beetle and you look at the 911, you can see that they're from the same family of cars and from the same family of designers. Ferdinand Porsche's son, Ferdinand, created the first ever sports car under the Porsche family brand, the 356. Then, in 1963, Ferdinand Porsche's son's son, Ferdinand, made the first ever 911. It still had the Beatles' air-cooled, rear-engined, rear-wheel drive setup, but it was originally called the 901.
So when Porsche wanted to take the car to the Frankfurt Motor Show to show it off to the world, unfortunately Peugeot successfully sued them because they claimed the right to 0 in their model numbers. So that's why we have the Peugeot 205, 206, 207. So that meant Porsche couldn't use the 0 in the middle. So now they had to come up with a new name. So they just went, well, let's just put a 1 in there instead. So it's the Porsche 911. And it's quite good because I don't think it'll work as the Porsche 901.